All right, well, hey, welcome to Code Freedom. This is Eddie Bales, and I'm excited to have a special guest. This is episode 236, and we have Taylor Kiakili Hamilton on the show. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Kiakili. Yep.
Yeah, Kiakili. I'm just curious. What does Kiakili mean?
So yeah, Kiakili, it means of the mind in Swahili. Just,
Nice.
basically. Yep.
I love that. I love that, man. And so, look, you went from $250 in your bank account to $1.5 million. That's pretty impressive at 26 years old.
Yes.
And so, take us from the beginning. How did you even get involved with the stock market?
Yeah, so I had been interested in investing for a long time, I'd say, but I had never really gotten my feet wet until the pandemic. At that time, I was working or commuting rather, about 2 hours back and forth between New York and Princeton, New Jersey. And so that took out a lot of my time where I'd been thinking and listening to podcasts for a while. There's a podcast called Millionaire Mindsets. And on the way back and forth to work, I'd be listening to all of these stories of people their different hustles essentially, and what they did for work that was outside of a normal job. And so that kind of got me in the mindset of wanting to do something outside of just my regular job. And I was working in IT at the time. And so essentially, I had just randomly scrolled Twitter one day and came across a tweet from someone I followed, Todd Capital, and he said, "How to make money on stocks falling." And through scrolling and coming across that, that was one thing that actually piqued my interest, because I had never known that you could do that. I thought you could only buy stocks at a low point and then hold it to a higher point. So I ended up buying his course, and it sat around for a while, just because it didn't feel, I had other stuff going on, obviously. But then when the pandemic hit, and putting two and two together about what was going to happen essentially once the first shutdown in the country happened, and that businesses weren't going to be able to make money, and then knowing stocks were going to fall, that's when that tweet became relevant to me then, and wanting to take that course. So I learned that and took that course and went through all the videos as fast as I could. That moment, that one day that the whole country shut down, and from there woke up early the next day, jumped into the market, tried whatever was going to happen to say, okay, I think the stocks are going to fall, I'm going to place an option to try to make money. I made about $400 my first day from $200, and then the rest was history.
Wow. I follow him as well. And I think a lot of people jumped in the stock market over the pandemic.
Yes.
Yes.
Not everyone is with us still now, but it definitely was a whole influx of new investors and traders, definitely.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because what made you one of the ones that actually stayed around and had success with it? What do you think attributed to that success?
I definitely think it was certainly a journey about how I was solidified here and how it really became this staying ground, I suppose. I was still working, but working from home once I was originally investing and trading. And eventually I got laid off from my job later into the pandemic. And so at that point, and that was about 6 months into me trading, essentially, I had accumulated enough profits from the market that by the time I got laid off, I had already been making about double the income that I was making at my IT job. And so once I got laid off, I was in a bit of a decent position, but it forced me through the door to really take this and make it a full-time thing. And within that, I think what really has kept me here is not necessarily just the potential for money, even though I think of the market as many a tool for many goals that I have. Because when I made that first $200, my whole life shined before me, or or so it felt, because it felt like this was really going to be the tool. This is what I was looking for all these goals that I had, whether it was to support communal efforts in the community, whether it was to support my mom, to invest in infrastructure to help the homeless and whatnot. It felt like I wasn't thinking about getting rich. I was feeling about, wow, this is a tool to help all these people, and once I really got into the market, there became that driving factor where once I knew and learned this material, I just felt super determined to share this information with as many people as possible, because it felt like it was something that I was using as a tool and changed my life. And I wanted to be an opportunity creator for the next person to also do the same. So at this point, I've become an educator in this space. I've become a teacher, and that's a job I had never really expected or anticipated before. But I get so much joy and excitement out of the teaching component itself that I feel as though that's really what's kept me here, to be one of those voices for people who otherwise may have not even tried or even thought of investing or trading at all,
No, that's powerful. I think that's one of the reasons why I resonate with you, because I can tell you have a spirit of giving, and you said something really key. It wasn't necessarily about the money. It was about, okay, this is what I can do for my community. And I know one of the things that you do is you give at least 25% back for
Yes.
low income communities and things like that. I think that's really, really powerful. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So that's that really does factor in very completely. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because when within trading and how successful it eventually became, I didn't feel too comfortable that it was that I was, doing this and it's making me money and whatnot. I remember when I'd gotten interviewed by Forbes for how things had gone, and that's something I'm very humbled and very appreciative for, But interestingly enough, I didn't post about that article on my Instagram or anything, as proud as I was as what I had accomplished, But in 2020, there was so much going on at the time, because 2020 there were so many protests, riots, obviously the pandemic, so many people losing their jobs, people becoming homeless, and now in 2023 we're kind of feeling those the ramifications essentially. Back then we felt them, and also I forgot to mention people, losing family members and friends from COVID itself, and so I felt as though, like, if I had this knowledge, if I had these resources, I wanted to be able to actually put in change, And so within that, I started what we call the VCG initiative. And so that's called, or it stands for Vision, Create, Growth. What initially started as this community that was built out of us trying to learn how to trade and invest. There's so many people that I've become real life friends that I met through the internet during the pandemic. And we continue to talk to this day. It's been 3 years now. And so many of those conversations that we've had about these different disciplines, these different just ways about wealth that's not just the market or not just their job. And those bonds that we've built have been so crucial to us that we want to share that sense of love with people who don't have the resource to even invest, that don't have the resources or need an opportunity to get to another place. So through the VCG initiative, we've been able to raise over $50,000 in for loads of different charities and organizations, and most of them being Black owned. There's Harlem Grown, there's the Fosen um, initiative and charity, donating to many different countries in Africa, donating to arts and cultures initiatives here in America, especially since my background is arts and illustration before I even became into trading or IT or anything, you know. And so wanting to furnace who is the next mind or creative who can build something out of just a dream and something to initiate that forward, you know. Those are all of the things that really happens together within being able to create wealth through trading and then wanting to share that with the community so that we can all build together, essentially.
Yeah, that's huge. And I just love that you're giving back because it's changing so many people's lives in that way. And I can see how that can make you driven because it's like, it's not even for me, it's for other people. So I got to do it, right? I got to make it happen, right? So
Yeah.
how big can we go? Because it's how many more people can we help? But tell us a little bit about some of the setbacks you might have had, because I've started on my trading journey as well during the pandemic. I've always invested in the stock market, but I really turned it up, during the pandemic, and I haven't had the success that you've had yet. But I'm on my journey. But I
Right.
would say, what are some of the setbacks you had, and how did you overcome some of them?
Yeah, most definitely. And I think it's actually definitely a good transition as well from what we just talked about to this topic, because there are times where I'm someone who can be very hard on myself because I have so many high expectations and goals and whatnot. And so when things would go wrong, it would definitely feel like, man, this is slowing me down from being able to reach the next person, from being able to provide and find new opportunities to create, you know? And that would definitely get to me mentally. So within trading, losses is definitely part of the journey. I definitely share with people, especially I'm doing this academy right now, or we just finished the academy. And within there, one of the classes fully focuses on just the idea of your mentality and keeping a consistent mindset and healthy mindset about the market. So one of the first things we learn is you will lose money, right? And I tell people that like it's like a guarantee essentially. But when I share that is to establish realistic expectations because it's going to happen to all of us, especially the most successful of us. Um, there's definitely been many times where there's been setbacks. I would say just about exactly a year ago from today, around this time, April of 2022, I was definitely getting whooped in the market. And there were some shaky waters that was really hard to balance myself mentally. Around this time last year was when um, the Ukraine and Russia conflict was really going off and setting off. And as anyone watching this, when there are war efforts in the world, that affects the market significantly. You know, anything that creates uncertainty will absolutely create volatility in the market where people really don't know what's going on, whether the market's going to go up or down. And with that, you don't know when any news headline is going to drop at all. And so you can be trading and thinking a stock is going to go up, and then suddenly there may have be some news from Russia that just drops out of the sky and dumps the market out of nowhere, you know. And if you don't have any protective measure in place, then that really will hurt your portfolio, you know. And I was definitely one of those people, because what can happen is, fully candidly and honestly speaking, even as experienced as I am, or as experienced as I feel I am, having traded 3 years at this point, and if we were talking in 2022's sense, 2 years, that feeling confident and feeling, oh, I've made so much money in the past. This is just, I'm built for anything, essentially. You know what I mean? But even with that, you have to open, and I had to open my mind to understand that there are so many experiences that I just haven't done yet. I feel like with trading, there's always going to be a new experience, no matter how long you've been here for, you know, and being encountered with trading through an ongoing new war that the US is involved in, that was something I was completely unprepared for, as confident as I thought I was. And that definitely set me back quite a ton, and really set the tone for the rest of 2022, honestly. Um, and so 2022 in the stock market was definitely very tricky for many people. Uh, and when you go through that, there has to be some type of restorative effort that is placed for you, for your how you recover, how you handle the next situation. And as you asked at the beginning, right, Kiakili means of the mind. And so there was a lot of work that I had to do for my mindset after taking so many back-to-back losses around that time, where having to remind myself that I'm a good trader, that I'm capable, right? Because those moments of consistent losses can just destroy your confidence, destroy your ability to think clearly, really harm your decision making for the next moment. And if you don't handle that, it's just going to consistently happen over and over and over again until you really get to the source of the problem, do the reflection, and do the work that's necessary to recuperate yourself and level up yourself to evolve to an even better trader.
Wow, yeah, it's when you say that, it actually makes me feel better because I really didn't correlate all that was happening into the world with why I was losing on so many
Right.
days and stuff like that. I just felt like, okay, I'm not good at it, or I just got to get better and I just need to learn
Right.
more. And of course, I know that's part of it, but I just never really thought of it in that way. So that makes me feel a little bit better that you say
Right.
that. But I was talking with you before we started recording, and I was asking about, because I know you're a full-time trader now.
Yep.
So like, just tell us, how do you manage like your everyday life in terms of taking income out of the market and then having enough to stay in the market that you keep investing and working on growing a portfolio?
Yeah, definitely. So what I can say is, at least first, let's say if from all your income, there definitely has to be some amount that is set apart for trading, and everything else for what's important. You know what I mean? And money for everything else, especially responsibilities and bills, that can't just be automatically thrown in back to trading, because there can be a very there can be incentive to do so just because you want to put the money back in and make more, make back what you lost. But if we don't take the lessons learned from those losses that we just talked about, and we just keep throwing money back in, that's more money that you're risking and to be lost. You know what I mean? So for me, from most of my income, especially now, and especially having dealt with last year, I really only use about 10 to 20% of my income to be in my trading portfolio. And so within that, that's also using a certain percentage of that as well. Whenever I'm making profits, I try my best at the point of either at the end of each month or end of each quarter to take at least 30% of all profits and put it back into my bank, right? And why that's important is because it develops what I can say a regimen of not just feeling as though that all of your money is just going to stay in the market and stay in your portfolio, you know, because what I've realized is that within trading, when you just keep going, 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 all of your money is here, you can get so wrapped up in it that when we talk about control and things that are outside of our control and things that are inside of our control. If you don't have control of what you are in control of, then the market is gonna control you, essentially, right? So all of your money being in the market, you just feel as though all of it is fair game to be used. And that can feed itself into not following a plan and taking very risky trading decisions, essentially, you know? So to avoid that, I try to start with a certain amount that's typically pretty small. And for anyone watching, you can start very, very small in the stock market with as little as $5, honestly. So I try to start um, each month at least one portfolio, let's say about $5,000. And right now I'm doing this challenge, you know, with the $1,000 every single quarter that, you know, restarts to 1,000, and I build it up from there. However much I get to by the end of the month, by the end of the quarter, I'm taking money out for one, taxes, and taking money out as well, so that it's just accumulating that money, you know, and it's going to be somewhere else. Maybe reinvest that into stocks. I haven't been investing in shares lately, but at least putting it somewhere where either the money is in a safe place, like your savings, or it's also continuing to work in other methods that may not involve as much risk.
Wow, good stuff. I mean, sounds like you got a really great plan and it's working well for you. So it's exciting to hear that. And speaking of that, can you dispel some of the myths around investing, especially in the stock market, and even more importantly in stock options? Because I know that's a very mystical thing for some people. It's like, oh my God, you're going to lose all your money in the stock market. And I mean, it's all about financial IQ. It's all about
Right.
financial literacy, and understanding the
Yep.
market, understanding it. And like you said, the mindset, that's the number one thing for any level of success. Is, I believe, 95% of success is in the mind, right? Everything else,
Right.
skill set, is just whatever. But the mindset is everything. But tell us a little bit about, if you could dispel that myth for us.
Right. Yeah, I'd say that because I definitely say and agree with what you said, because part of making this skill and making this tool more accessible is sharing that knowledge about how accessible it really is, you know. And so with investing, you do not need a lot of money to start investing. You do not need a lot of money to start trading. That was a very long ongoing myth that really kept a lot of people, especially people like us, out of investing and out of using our money outside of having to save it and budget and go to work, come home, and that cycle, essentially, right? And so what opened those doors up definitely has been these brokers, these apps. Some apps are auto investing, like Acorns, uh, apps like Robinhood that have been so um, mainstream, accessible, where you can invest into any stock with however much money you want. At one point back in the day, you had to buy one whole share of a company, right? Amazon, before their stock split, used to cost about $3,000 a share. And if you didn't have $3,000, then you just can't invest in Amazon, right? And now you can literally put however much money you want into any given share or ETF, which is a bundle of stocks, or anything. You can put however much money, and however the stock performs, your investment will perform the same as well. Um, when it comes to trading, that's a similar thing there. I think one of the other myths is, and I'll elaborate a little bit. One thing that people at least consider and worry about with investing is that it takes a long time. It takes a long time to even make a real good return on your investment. And not everyone has that time. People if they don't have the money, the little bit of money to invest, then they don't have the time to wait around for just a really small return on their investment, right? And so with options trading, it is a vehicle to enable much faster returns on your investment, right? Where most hedge funds and investors, the average return per year is 10% on their whole portfolio, 10% only, right? Whereas options trading enables 10% return potentially every single day, you know? And where buying an entire share of a company and on average, maybe it goes up only 2% per day. If you were to trade an option on that same company that went up 2%, your trade can go up 50% increase of return, 100%, 200% from that move. And you can pay less to make those trades. Where, let's say, Apple stock right now is about $160 per share, you can buy an option on that for maybe $40 or $50 and double that in 1 to 2 days. And that's a lot faster than having to invest and wait years to see that same type of return. Obviously, what needs to be said within that privilege that is given, it involves more risk. Absolutely, right? But it doesn't have to. It does not have to be absolutely risky. It doesn't have to be that. The other last myth I think I'd address is trading and investing is gambling. Absolutely untrue, right? Trading can become gambling if that's what you're treating it as, and you don't have a plan and you don't have any risk management measures because you're just throwing money hoping something happens. But when you are considering the probabilities at play, when you are taking risk management measures, like using only a small amount of your portfolio, like I mentioned, putting in stop losses, which are tools that if a stock drops below a certain level, you are protected and you are out. There are ways to really minimize your losses almost completely, right? I can't say completely because I just said that losing is guaranteed at some point, you know, but it doesn't have to be devastating where the idea of losing all of your money comes into play, right? You have to have emotional intelligence. You have to have a strong mindset and you have to have protective measures. Be educated in that space so that you have that knowledge there for you so that it doesn't become something so detrimental and that it becomes a recurring profit vehicle for you that can involve as little as $5 to start trading, potentially even as small as $2. And that's able to be really the compounding potential there from small amounts of money to big amounts of money is there. Because I'm from the very beginning of this year of January, I wanted to be a testament for that this is accessible. You do not need a lot of money here. And I wanted to prove it. And so I used $300 and I put it in my portfolio. And within about 12 days, I was able to grow that $300 to $30,000 within 12 days.
Wow.
Right? And that is not the norm to get that crazy amount of return. But I'm proud to at least say it and prove that it was possible. You know what I mean? But the realistic idea is that at least that small amount of money can compound. And it doesn't have to be 12 days. Don't have that expectation that fast. But it could be a month. It could be 3 months. It could be half a year. Because for me, to go from $200 to my first $60,000, that took me about 3 months, right? and about 6 months to make my first six figures. And so that is possible. So many people have had similar stories, you know, and by sharing these stories, sharing the tools, sharing the education, we want to at least show that it's possible and pass it along to whoever is ready to at least try it and consider it as a serious mode of income for yourself.
Wow, man, that's strong, because I've heard people say you got to have at least $25,000 or you need to have 5,000 and all this other stuff.
No,
And
especially because if you start big, you already, you can set yourself up for failure from jump because if you don't have that knowledge in place, you're just starting out, you can just lose it so fast. Like so many people's stories I've heard or come to me saying they started with $10,000 and lost the majority of it. That just makes it so much harder to climb back, you know? So I advise everyone to start small because the sky is literally the limit, you know?
wow, well, I got so many questions I could ask, but we're going to go ahead and, let the viewers connect with you. So how can people connect with you?
Yeah, most def. You can follow me at Kiakili on most platforms. And so that's KIAKILI. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. You just have to look for the orange circle with the eyes with the mad eyebrows, because that's my logo. I'm wearing it right now. So
Yes,
if you
sir.
ever see anything that looks like this, it's me. And look out for any impersonators or fake accounts because I have a lot of them. Just look for the verified accounts.
For sure. Let me ask one question though. This
Yep.
podcast is all about freedom. And so how has, trading in the stock market allowed you to have freedom, and what does freedom look like for you now?
Yeah, that's an absolutely beautiful question. And I feel as though my answer has changed a lot pertaining to that. You know what I mean? I think like the regular answer that maybe I gave at some point was just obviously the income and how successful the profits have enabled these opportunities to be able to provide for those who need it, to provide for my mother who I've always wanted to, right? To be able to enact change and buy things essentially, right? And that's what wealth is able to accomplish, right? But what's very interesting is that just as a short aside, I remember at one point for my 25th birthday, because I'm 26 now, my 25th birthday, I kept saying, you know what, I want to get a Tesla for my birthday, because that's like the only car that I was ever interested in and wanted to try to get, and getting up to that point, my birthday came, I had the money available to me, but at that point, I was happy with my Honda. I was it was it was very, it satisfied me in that regard already, you know. And I thought about like how much more I was appreciative of the life I had, how much more time that it was enabling me to at least do other things. And I want to get back into drawing, and I still have that drive to be the artist and be the creative that I am. And I have all these goals and whatnot, but I have the choice at least to do so, to do that. And that's one form of freedom where I feel detached from at least those material things and being more appreciative of my time. And the second part that has felt like freedom is how teaching has become such a passion for me, and not expecting that to come from trading and come from this whole community and these tools that we use through social media to connect. Because being able to share being able to educate, being able to share a piece of my mind where I can connect with someone, not just through talking about the stock market and trading and whatnot, but that I can connect with and we can engage on a personal level where we can discuss anything, and just through the love and the community and just the joy within it all, that those connections are fostered and that we become better, more informed, and more kind people to one another. And that experience overall has really brought me true joy when I can feel it. And through how hard things can be, whether it's losing family members or dealing with any hard part of life, being able to come back to that and know that I'm going to be able to smile and I'm going to be able to feel so fulfilled within those experiences. Having that is something I wish for everyone, you know?
Oh, that's strong. That's strong because I mean, when you actually have the money to get what you want, but you just decide not to, just because you're happy with just life overall, right?
Right.
Your ability to just live life on a different level. So that's awesome, man. So well, hey, good. I've enjoyed this episode. It's been great, and we look forward to hopefully having you on the show again. Thank you for tuning in.
Most def. Thank you, Eddie.
Appreciate you.